All right, so hi everyone, once again. Welcome to our class today. Over the past few classes, of course, we've been treating HTML and currently we are treating CSS. We've been having CSS classes. We've talked about a lot in CSS, styling, different types of ways of embedding your styles to your HTML. Talked about external styling, talked about styling using the style tag within the head tag. Equally talked about inline styling. We went on to talk about selectors, CSS selectors, that there are different kinds of selectors. You know, we have element selectors, parent, descendant selectors. We have ID selectors. We have class selectors and CSS group selectors and a whole lot. We've done that in previous classes. So we've also talked about box model and layouts, talked about some contents, the padding, borders, margin. Also talked about typography and fonts, the styles you could use that would apply to your text. It also talked about colors. Yeah, that was what we treated in our last class. Talked about colors, HSL, um, hexadecimal, dimension for colors. Talked about RGB, which stands for red, green, and blue. Talked about RGBA also, which the additional A stands for alpha, right? Um, yeah, so we've actually been working on CSS, and today we will go into what we have, which is just about backgrounds, right? So we talk about background today. All right, so let's look at our HTML once again. So this is the HTML we have been working with, and yeah, so we just want to talk about background. All right, so we need an image for our background. So I could just give me a moment to go online and just get an image. Let me see, web development background image. Let's just do something random. Okay, so let's say we want to use these. Okay, so I just need to choose an image that doesn't have copyright issues. Okay, so I think okay, so let's see stock. Okay, so let's try this save image as. So if we don't even want to save image as, so let's assume. So let's hold on. Okay, so let me just save it first. So let's say BG image. Let's just call it BG image, and we'll save it under so I actually want to save it under desktop where we have our class. That's our folder, the current folder we are working in. So I don't want to save it in another folder, then find a way and copy it to our current folder. So while saving the image, I just want to save it directly to our class folder so that we just have it on our projects directly. So let's click save. Yeah, so it gets saved. So, but what we can do, let me also select another image. Let's say this one. Um, okay, so no, let's click this one on Pixabay. So let me just right click, copy image address, or copy link address, I think. Yeah, link address. Okay, so let's go to our CSS. So we are talking about background, talking about background. So that's what we are dealing with here. All right, so we want, okay, so first let's even see how our web page looks like first. So let's open with live server. Okay, so this is how our web page looks like. Okay. All right, so let's go to our CSS within this background. So let's do something like this, background image. Okay, so we need to style it under a selector. So let's say maybe under body, for example, right? We want to bring in a background image. So background image, right? So after background image, so what follows is a URL. So inside the URL, so you have the option of pasting a link, right? You can just directly bring a link, and you can either use single quotation mark or you use double, right? Single quotation mark or you use double. So, but let's go with single. So single always makes sure that um, of course, that's the minimum. Beyond single, you have double. So in cases where if you have a text, so for example, um, let's say within this URL, for example, we had a part of it, or maybe the URL was supposed to be maybe single quotation mark, right? It's going to be a single quotation mark. So if you have a case where the text inside already has a single quote, then if you want to use the URL, you can now actually bring in the double quotation. But if you use the double quotation, it's going to work. If you use a single quotation, it's going to work. But just understand that if you are going to have a kind of text that looks like this, let me just give you an example. So let's say maybe at any point within this comment, right? Say you are going to write something like this that maybe it's like a quote, right? A quote to say maybe like this is a quote, for example, right? So, and maybe this syntax requires that you put in a double quotation mark, right? To cover whatever text is inside here. So maybe you were typing something to say, this is how my paragraph looks like. How my paragraph looks like. Maybe you have something like this. So you can see if you're going to have any kind of text that looks like this, right? Maybe you are going to have a text that from beginning of that text to the end of that text, there's going to be a quotation. Maybe you got a quote from an author and you want to reference it, right? So if you don't want to, it depends on the usage anyway. So you might come across times where, especially in JavaScript, yeah, but just to let you know, because you might ask what's the difference between single quotation and double quotation, especially in JavaScript, you might come across a text like this where part of the text is already a quotation from maybe an author or from a particular source. And you need to put in quotation sign that, oh, this area or this portion of text is actually quotation from someone or from an author. While this external double quotation mark is probably the default syntax, right? The default quotation mark that your text is supposed to be contained in. So this is actually where the single quotation mark and double quotation mark, there's some kind of difference, right? So if you're going to have a quotes within a line of text, right, especially in JavaScript, but at this point where you are doing your CSS, if you use single quotation mark, whatever you are typing here would work. If you use double quotation mark, it will equally work. But just to let you know, because you might want to ask, what's the difference between single and double? Both of them will work, but there are cases, especially in JavaScript, where you would have, to represent a text, and within that text is a quote, and you need to, of course, put the quotation mark to say that this is a quote. So in that context, your quotes, that part of text that is a quote, you give it a single quotation mark, while the outer one that's supposed to still have a quotation mark, you actually give it a double quotation mark, just to draw your attention to this. But at this point, because this is CSS, so if you do a single quotation mark, it's going to work. If you do a double, it will equally work. So we had copied the image URL, right? So let's just drop it, Control V. Yeah. So let's see how it goes. Let's see, does it work? Okay. Okay, so let's see. All right. Okay, so it still doesn't work. So let's go back to the image. Let's copy image address. Let's see. Control V. Let's see how that plays out. Okay. All right. Okay. So what we did was we just copied the image address instead of link. So first we copied the link. Link was not working. So we came to copy the image address. So meaning that if you want to apply, so for example, you just go online and maybe just a random image and you just want to use it for tests, right? Because it's at this point you actually want to test. So if you are building a real website, you don't want to get your URL, image URL from an external source, except that external source, you are the one that hosted it. Probably you hosted that image and you have control over where that image is hosted. Then that's when you can copy the URL from where it is hosted and use it for your project, right? Maybe for a site that will go live and users will get to visit and interact with it. But if you are just building something for test, you can just go online and find a random URL for image URL and just come to your code and put it and you see it work. But if you want to do something that's you're going to give to a client, then it's better you just download the image. You can save the image as I've already downloaded one. I don't want to download this again. So, but you just save the image in your project, right? So just like in my project here, already you have BG image that I downloaded before. So it's better to save your image on your project, then from there use it in your code. That's actually always makes sense more than getting it from an external source, except you have control over that external source. All right, so yeah, background image URL. So what we can do is, since we are now having up to two images and two images here, so what we can do is to even create a folder, right, and put all our images. We can just say images. So you can drag this, drop under image, ask you, do you want to move? Yes, I want to move. You can drag the second one, drop there. Yeah, so I want to move it. So that helps you to put all your images in one place, right? Okay, so That's what happens essentially. All right, so we have background image URL, and of course you've seen it display here. Let's go back. Yeah, so you've seen it display here, right? Okay, so what else can you do? So let's comment this out first. So that's from an external source. So I can just put it here in the comments to say um background image from an external source, right? So I can do that. Then here I'll still use background image because we are still working with background image. So background image here, still URL. So at this point, all we want to do is to bring in the image that we currently have in our project, right? So we don't want to bring an external stuff. So in order to get that, we of course do our dots. Okay, so we have to first put quotation mark, remember? So we have to do our dots /. So remember when you do dots and /, it's actually going to bring out all the files and folders in your present working directory, PWD, or in your current folder or in your current project. So if you do, remember I said this dot actually has a meaning. So if you do dots 2 times, dots, and /, you see you are seeing something entirely different. Why? Because you are going backward 2 times. Like, okay, so let me try to demonstrate. Okay, let's say for these images. So let me see. Let me copy parts. Let me copy the parts, right? So let's drop it here for you. Let me put it in a comment so that our code will not throw error. So let's say Ctrl V. So you can see something. What are you seeing? You are seeing /users /apple /desktop /class1 /images. So when you say dots slash, what you are saying is that show me all the files and folders in this current folder. So where is the current folder? The current folder is class1. This is the current folder. Remember, class1. We are inside class1 working. All our styles of CSS, index.html is within class1, right? So when you say dots /, it's going to bring out everything under class1, which is going to include images and every other thing inside class1, right? So when you say dot /, what you are saying is that you are currently in class1. So the first dot represents class1. You are inside a file within class1. So when you say dots means present working directory. Second dot means you are going back, right? So just understand that it goes back. If you do dots 3 times, it goes to Apple, right? First dot is for class1. Second dot will go to desktop. Third dot will go to Apple. And list and display all the folders and files there. So you can see. So let's just say dot /. So you see we have images, the same thing we have on our project here to the left. We have images, index.html, we have index 2, index 3, music, and video. So if we take that out and say dot /. So it goes back 2 times. So you can see it goes to desktop, right? So that's to tell you that, oh, these are all the files and folders on my desktop. This is what it means. So we have backend, we have all of this. Then if you go again, if you put a third dot, it goes to Apple to show you all the files and folders you have. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 dots. Okay. So if we want to go back, let's see, dot /, dots. Okay, so dot forward slash. Okay. So yeah, so it actually allows to maximum. Okay. So by using this, okay, so dot forward slash dot forward slash, it goes back again, right? So yeah, so but that's just by the way, right? So if you say dot forward slash, it's gonna actually show our images. So we can say images. That's where our image is. Then another forward slash again. It's actually going to bring out the images you have within that folder. So you just click it, right? So with this, you are going to see this background image show up. And here, so you can see here, it shows up. But what do you discover is that by default, the background repeats, right? The background repeats by default. So in our styling here, there's something called, background, background repeats, right? Background repeats, yeah. So background repeats. So you can say no repeats, no repeats. So no repeats is just going to make the background not to repeat, right? So you've said background, I don't want it to repeat, so it will not repeat. But by default, if this is not here, our background will repeat by default to cover the entire width, to cover the entire dimension of whatever element that you've you are applying the background to, right? So that's what it actually does. Okay, so yeah, so let's see. All right, so background repeats. If you activate background repeats, no repeat, your background would by default not repeat. However, the other background styles you could use. So we have background, let's see, cover, background size, right? Background size. So you have different options. You have cover. Let's see what cover does. So you see, cover is going to scale the image while preserving its intrinsic aspect ratio, that is if it has, to the smallest size, such that both its width and its height can completely cover the background positioning area. So let's see what background cover does. Wow, so you can see what background cover covers. It scales the image to cover the entire dimensions, that's width and height of the element. And in this case, remember that our element is body. So essentially we are styling the whole web page, right? Because we are attaching the background image to our body element, right? So when you say background size, cover, you see what it does. This is what cover does. So what if we say content? There's another one, content. All right. Okay, so let's look at content. So this is what content does. Content is actually going to scale. It will scale that image, but it will not it will not make the image to lose its quality or aspect ratio. But what cover does, cover is going to make sure, that's what cover does. Cover makes sure that the background image covers the entire width and height of the element. But for content is still going to scale it, but at the same time, it will not lose make it lose its aspect ratio. So so let's see. But let's go with cover, right? So let's go with cover. So let's go with cover. Yeah. So it's in content, you may have gaps, right? Gaps. So you might have areas that are not covered in content. But for cover is always going to make sure. So, but if you look at our image here, you can see that some portions are a little bit blurred, right? Because it's going to enlarge, it will enlarge that image just to make sure that it covers the entire dimension. Okay, so background size cover. So we have fixed background attachments, fixed background. We actually have fixed and other properties, but let's demonstrate fixed background attachment. So fixed. So you can even see from here you have fixed, local, scroll, and the rest. So background attachment. So let's say fixed. Okay. Okay, so it just specifies whether the background image should be fixed or it should scroll. So if your web page is such that it can scroll, so that's what background attachment is going to do. So it will either make it fixed or it's going to make it scroll. So when it says, okay, so let me just to demonstrate this, you may not really see it because our website is not scrollable. Okay, let's say scroll. You're still not going to see any difference. So, but if we go to our HTML and we have, we repeat this paragraph, we want to make it very long, want to make our HTML long, like our website long, so that it's going to be scrollable, right? So let's add in more text, let's just add more text so that it's going to make our website scrollable. That's what we want to achieve. So I'm just pasting this. I had already copied the paragraph, so I'm just pasting it so that our website is going to be long and it's going to be scrollable. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so I have some stuffs here I need to delete. Okay, so okay, so yeah. Okay, so our website is scrollable now. That's what we wanted to achieve. Okay, so fixed. Let's check out. So now our background attachment is scroll, right? So this is how scroll behaves. So it doesn't matter how long it is, your website or the HTML is actually going to stretch. It will stretch the image to the point where anyhow we scroll it, the image is what will continue to show, right? But however, if we come to, instead of scroll and we say fixed, let's check out fixed. So what happens? Okay, so you can see fixed is that the background image remains fixed, but because our website is scrollable, so you are going to see that it's going to scroll on top. It will scroll over the background image. So it's important for you to just see. You can see that as I'm scrolling to the top, the background image remains fixed. But if I say scroll, it's actually going to scroll with with my website. So I think that's important. We also have background. What else do I want to demonstrate? Background position. Yeah. So background position. So you can have center. So background position actually takes It actually takes the X position and the Y position, right? So it takes two variables or two inputs. So you can say center, center, if you like, center, center. So if you say center, center, you are saying that on the X-axis, centralize the background image, and on the Y-axis, also centralize the background image. So center, center. But if you give only one variable, the second one will default to center. Okay, so let me write it. So background position center. So let's say um okay, so if you give just one value, right? So if just one value, right? So if it's just one value, the second value will default, is going to default to second value will default to center, right? If you give just one value. But by default, so let's say, so by default, right? By default, background position takes it takes two values, right? One for the x-axis, or the first. Let's be more specific. So let's say the first for the x-axis, right? While the second for the y-axis. So when we just say x-axis, of course, x-axis runs from left to right. So from left to right, right? From left to right. While the second for the y-axis, so of course, y-axis runs from top to bottom. So just have that imagination. So yeah. So we've given a background position to say center, center. Okay, so this is what center, center looks like. If we say top, if we say top, top, top and center, what happens? So I think why we don't have any changes is that we have made our background image to cover, background size cover. So let me take out this. Let me comment out background size. What else? Background attachment, you've said it should be fixed. Let me see. So yeah. So if you have background size cover, it's actually going to your background position would not, you wouldn't see it take effect, right? So but now you've seen that I have commented out the background size cover. So at this point, whatever we give, whatever values we give to background position is actually going to reflect. So this is it. So we say top, remember, we say background position, top and center. Top and center. So that's why you see it this way. So if we say center, center that we had before, center, center, center. So you see your background image will come to the absolute center because it's centering from left to right, and it's also centering from top to bottom. So same thing. So you can have bottom, bottom, center. You're also going to see it. So you can have bottom left, right? Bottom left, it goes to your left. You can have bottom right. It's going to go to your right. Then you can have top right, right? Top, it will go to the top right. So just to let you know that, you can play around with your background images, right? You can position them anyhow you want to position. You can make them not to repeat if you don't want them to repeat. If you want them to repeat, then of course, background repeat, you should be able to delete it if you want it to repeat, Background size cover, yeah. So I've talked about background position. So what else do we have for background? Yeah, so we can also have background color. Of course, we've been, dealing with background colors all this while. So you can have background color, and from there, give any color to it, maybe blue or something. So you can actually combine color and image if you like. It just depends on the style at the end of the day. If you can even use one as fallback if you like. You can say background color blue and background size cover, So the background image is going to actually take precedence over the blue. But if you see what I'm doing, as I try to scroll, the background color of blue will show at the bottom. So you can just make it a fallback to say, oh, just in case the image does not load or something, let there be a background, maybe color at least. But I think this blue is far too shouty. So maybe any other shade of blue would, I think, work. So it actually depends on your use case or maybe your client's requirement. So that's what determines what to do or what to use. But just to let you know that you can combine both if you want. That's background color and background image at the same time. Okay, so yeah, so let's take out this. So the next thing we want to look at is borders. Borders.
I want to ask you something.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Um, when I uploaded the photo, like scroll up first. I want to check something in your CSS.
In my CSS. Okay. I should keep scrolling up.
Yes, to the number one.
Okay, to the top. Okay, so yeah. So I'm here.
Okay, you remove this background color gold. Because
Yes,
mine
I
was there.
actually. Oh, okay.
So like when I uploaded the photo, like the
Okay.
background color was taken like over it. Fine, I removed it. That's what I wanted to confirm.
Oh, okay. So okay, so let's see. So this is universal style. So let's uncomment and see. So background color gold. That's, you have it in our universal. Then in our
Yes.
body, what do we have? We actually have a background color still, and we equally have a background image. So let's see what happens. Okay, so we are actually having, interesting. Okay. So we are having something that is unexpected, right? Some parts takes the gold, some parts takes the background color. All right. So yeah. Okay, so what I see essentially here is that that's the background color here, the one we have here on body. The gold actually overshadows what we have on the body. So that's what I can see here. So just be careful in your styles and you know. So, but if you have such a situation and maybe you are thinking what's happening, remember you can always inspect. right? If you don't know what's happening, if you do not know why the color is not what you are expecting, maybe you expected the color to be maybe as you came here to say background color, RGB, this, and it was still showing gold, and you're like, oh, what's happening? Maybe you couldn't figure it out immediately in your code. So remember, you could always inspect. Okay, let me change my doc site. Let me make it this way. Okay. So remember, you could always inspect to say what's happening here, what's going on, right? You can click here and, be able to inspect, right? Okay. So hope your question is addressed. All right. So we just move to borders. We've been working on borders for some time now, and so to work on borders, so let's comment out the background color of gold. What else do we want to do? What else do we want to do? So let's this background, let's see, background image, let's disable it for now. Okay. So the background color shows by default. Let's equally disable the background color. Yeah, so I want it to just be white so that whatever we are doing is going to make sense. All right. So we are here. So what we want to demonstrate is border, right? Border. So let's create a new div. Let's go to our code. What I would like to do is all these excess paragraph that I pasted here, I would just like to delete them just so that what I'm doing can, be bold and clear enough. So I just like to delete them. Okay, so let's have another div here. Div, yeah. So let's work with this div, right? Let's give it an ID and call it box um, div box. I don't know, we could call it anything, but let's say div box, for example. That's what I want to use to demonstrate some stylings for border. So let's go to our styles.css. And so we'll do dots. So just to mention, before I continue, just to mention that for body, right? Body, it's always good to style your body tag at the beginning. So it's because you already have tons of code here. So, but normally what you would want to do is you can copy your body tag, but copy it or cut it and take it up. So it will still work. It will work anywhere it is. But why do you want to do this? It's just for hierarchy. Hierarchy, so that immediately you open your style or CSS, everybody knows that for HTML, first thing you have is body, right? You have universal selector, you have body. So those are the two things that should be up here. It's actually going to help you so that while scrolling through your code, as you type your HTML, of course, you style it, you give it an equivalent styling in your styles.css. You don't want to carry body tag to put at the end of your styles. You might be looking for it and you might not know where it is. So, but from up, based on hierarchy, also looking at your index.html where you have a head tag. After head tag, you have body, more like the hierarchy, of course, shows. So everything within your body tag now comes after this body styling. That just makes sense logically, right? So, but if you have this universal selector anywhere on your CSS style sheet, it's actually going to work. But just for the sake of hierarchy and for the sake of, when you load your CSS file or when you come to your CSS file as as a human, right, you're able to make a logical inference to say, oh, okay, of course, HTML will always start with a body tag. So styling a body element at the top makes sense, right? Coming down, you say, oh, hash paragraph. If you go to your index.html, you most likely see that hash paragraph as one of the first items you would see under your body tag. So that makes a lot of sense. You come down, you see ID, Lorem paragraph, and you go to your styles, after hash paragraph, you see something like, Lorem paragraph come almost next. So it gives a logical, inference to you, even when you are going through your code. So that actually makes sense. So, but you can put it anywhere and it will work. But just for the sake of what I've explained. Okay. So we are talking about borders, and I actually created a div and gave it an ID of div box. Okay. So I gave it an ID of div box. So IDs are styled with hash div underscore box. Okay, so let's just give it a width, maybe 300 pixels. Let's give it a height, say, if we want to make it a perfect square, but I don't want, let's make it 200 pixels. So if you check your code at the moment, you're not going to see anything. You won't see anything because it's empty. The div is empty. It's below here, right? But it's empty. Okay, so what you can do is to give it a border. When you give it a border, that's when you actually see it show. Or if you give it a background color, you actually see it. So let's say maybe background color. Let's give it this one. So do you see? You're actually going to see it show because the color will take the dimension of the box. But if you don't give it a color, you will not see it. You won't see it show forth. So let's say border. Yeah, so border. Um, maybe 2 pixels solid red. Okay, so this is how it looks. 2 pixels solid red. So I wanted to bring out other styles that we have for border, such as this border 2 pixels solid red. Okay, so what do we have? Border style, border style, and we say, so if we say double, what's going to happen? Okay, so I didn't see any change, but let's say dotted. Dotted. Okay, dotted. So you can see it has actually made it dotted. Let me zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So you can see it's actually dotted, right? So you can make it dashed. So this is how dash looks like. You just play around. There are a lot of values. I think groove. How does groove look like? Okay. Let's see. Insets. Insets. Okay. So I think that would mostly show when if we are using a paragraph. So, but just to let you know that there are different values within border style, which you can play around with. So, well, let's leave it at maybe dotted. Let's leave it at dotted. Let's leave it at dotted. Okay, so let's see other styles for border. So we can have border width, border, so width, border width. So if you say 10 pixels, let's check. So do you see border width 10 pixels? So with that border width, you can actually control or increase the border size. If you say maybe 50 pixels, you equally see what 50 pixels translates to. So yeah, so it just depends on what you want. Yeah, but just to let you know that you can use border width to play around with the width of the border. Then but let's make it solid. Let's make it solid. Yeah, so solid is just going to go around it. Okay, so but that width is too big for me, so I can make it 5. Okay, so let's make it 5 and leave it there. Border width, we have border width, border color. Yeah, you can actually still play around with the border color. Border color, you can say, maybe if you want to change that color, you can say maybe border color blue, right? Yeah. So what I want to check is, let me see, let me comment out this guy. Okay. So what is here is that you can use border style plus border width and border color to achieve this, what you are currently seeing on the screen. However, this is a shorthand. Line 85 is shorthand, where it takes in the border width. You can see with the word border alone, we can bring in the width, we can bring in the style, we can equally bring in the border color. So, but just to let you know, so you can decide to make it 3 lines of code if you like. You can also decide to make it 1 line of code. Just use border and define the width, define the style, define the color. So it really depends on you. But I think you would almost want to go for something that is shorter. All right. Um, so that's for border. So border, yeah. So there's something called border radius. Border border radius, right? Border radius. So so border radius, if you say maybe 40 pixels. So see what border radius does. Border radius is just going to make the edges to be curved, right? It's going to curve the edges. That's what border radius does. Um, so so if you want a perfect round shape, if you want to create a perfect round shape, you can do this. For your border radius, you can say 50%. Just to also let you know that you can use percentages for some of these values, but you need to, however, understand what that means or what the implication of that is. So when you say border radius 50%, it's going to give you a perfect round shape. But why this one is not perfect round is because it's a rectangle. So because it's a rectangle, it comes out like an egg, right? So if we had given the dimension to be square, let's say, so here we have width 300 pixels, height 200. So if we had width 300 pixels and we had height 300, so let's say 300 by 300. So you can see this is our um, element. So it gives us a perfect circle because we have said 50%. So just to let you know that with border radius, you can, it just brings the degree of roundness or curveness. It just brings a kind of curvature to your element. That's what border radius does, and you can play around with it. So let's see, let's comment it. So so we have border, so you can target one part of the border, right? As you can see here, you have border. Maybe you just want to make the top left, right? Border top left radius. You just want to play with the radius of the top left, maybe 20 pixels, for example, just top left. So you can see only top left. The curvature has been applied to only top left. I don't know, say, let's increase it a bit, maybe 50 pixels. So you can see. So if you want to do top right, same thing, right? It's the same thing. Top right, border, or let's say bottom, 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 say right, then radius. So let's give it maybe 100 pixels, for example. Border bottom right radius. So you can see the bottom right has also gotten some level of curve. All right. So Daniel, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Please can you show us the HTML code that related to this border?
Okay, the HTML code. All right. So let's go back to our index.html. So this is it. Very simple. Line 36. It's just an empty div. There's nothing inside. And we gave it an ID of div underscore box. So there's nothing inside. It's empty. So we just took div underscore box, went to our styles of CSS, then we gave it a width, we gave it a height, gave it background color, gave it border style, gave it border width, color, and we are where we are, border radius. All right, so just to let you know things you can do, yeah. So at this point, you can bring in an image. So let's try something. Let's try something. You can bring in an image and just work on the border radius. So let's say image, img. So image will have an src, that's for source. An image will also have an alt text. Image will have an alt text. So let's see. We want to bring in one of our images here. So let's use the image we use for our background. Let's check it out. So let's say dot / images / bg image .jpg, right? So alt, let's see, what alt do we give to it? So let's look at the image. So the alt is, we can say a finger pointing to a web development image or animation. Okay, so web development graphics or image. So you can be very explicit in your alt texts. Very, very explicit. Right. So you can say a finger, maybe you can say a finger pointing to a web development image, right? You can even go further to say surrounded with icons. So you just look at the image and you describe it. Sorry. Let me go to. So this is the image, right? So this is someone's finger pointing at a web development graphics or web development image with icons around it or with icons surrounding it. Okay. So our alt is very explicit. So let's see what we have. Okay. So this is the image. So we can play around with the border radius. If we want to make it a perfectly round image, let's see. Okay, so let's give it an ID or let's give it a class. So remember I said you can use ID, you can use class, but ID has to be unique. Classes does not have to be unique. So class could be unique, class could not be. Like you can have a class name for only one element in your HTML. You can also have multiple, like the same class name for multiple elements, for many elements having one class name if you like. But for ID must be one, it must be unique. So if you have an ID of div underscore box, it should just be this element on line 36 that has this ID. Every other thing, if you want to give another ID that maybe looks like a box, you can say div underscore box 2 to differentiate the second box from this particular one. But make sure that your ID is unique. This div underscore box should be the only div underscore box in your entire HTML. But for this class, any class I give to it, I can say web image, for example, web image. That's the name of this class. So I can have another image and I will still give it a class of web image if I like. So this one you can have a replica of classes or duplicates, but for ID, you are expected to just make it one throughout your HTML. It has to be unique. So yeah, so we are working on that image. So we say, let's use dots. So dot is for class, dots web image. So let's say border radius. Border radius. So if we say 50%, let's see. So you can see it also gives the image a round shape. So what you can do here, you can control the width and height. If you want, if you look at a profile pictures, right? You see profile pictures, even the one on my browser here, if you can see my cursor to my top right, profile pictures many at times are round, perfectly round. And you might wonder how is that achieved, right? So it's just achieved by, you just give it a width, make sure that the width is equal to the height, the dimension of the width. So you can say maybe like, if you want to make a profile picture, you can say like 50 pixels. Then height, 50 pixels. Then you now have border radius 50%. So let's check it out. So you can see this is it. So if you have somebody's face that you want to use as a profile picture, okay, so let's just do that. So let's just say avatar. Let's say profile picture avatar. Okay, so let's say something like this. Okay, so we can let me see, what do we want to do? Okay, so let me copy image address. Let's try using the image directly. So let's go to our HTML. So it's SRC. Let's bring that in here. Or let's do this. Let me comment out this. Or no, let me leave it. Let me create a new image. IMG. So it has an SRC. So let's drop that. Then after that, we have alt. So we can say profile, picture, avatar. Okay. So let's see. Oh, okay. So we have it here. So, okay. So let's see. Class. So let's give it the same class. Class. Remember, we've already given that kind of styling. So we can say web image. Class of web image. It will just take. So you can see. Look at it here. So we have something like that looks like profile picture here. Okay, so yeah, so Harry is asking, is it a must to add alts? Yes, please. It's a must. ALT is a must. So when I say it's a must, if you don't add must, it will still work, right? If you don't add must, if you don't add alt. But it's not good if you don't have, let's see. So this is the image. This is the big one. Image SRC this. We didn't add alt and it worked. But that's not what you want to do because that's bad coding. It's a bad one. So please always have your alts. Alt. Let me also show you why the alt is necessary because maybe you might be thinking why must we add alt since we removed the alt and it worked. So let's just give an example. Let's say, for example, if this image does not load by any means for whatever reason, maybe there's a challenge with the server where the website is hosted or something, and the image does not load at that time. So let's say, okay, let's try it with this second one. This second one that we brought from outside, from an external distance. So let's alter this link to make it, you know, just so that it will not work. So instead of placeholder, let's remove O from the URL. Okay. So can you see? Profile, picture, avatar. So it's still going to tell the user that there's an image here. And this is what that image stands for. That's one of the reasons, just in case your image does not load, it is what you put in your alt that will show on the browser to tell somebody or to tell the user, somebody that is going through your website, to say that, oh, there's an image here, and this is the description of that image. Secondly, what it also does is that it helps screen readers for accessibility. Accessibility is just for those maybe that have color blindness, or maybe they are totally blind, they are visually impaired, right? And they need screen readers to read your website for them to understand what this website is all about. So the screen readers will come to this alt. When they come to image, SRC, since the screen readers are not displaying the image, what they are just doing is they are reading through your HTML. So if you say SRC, this images, BG image, it doesn't make any sense. But when you read and you go to alt, ALT, and you say, oh, alternative text for this image is that, oh, this is the image of a finger pointing to a web development image surrounded with icons, it makes sense, right? Because it's a human being that is looking at your site. It's a human being that needs to understand what your site is about. So for accessibility, those who have some kind of impairment, right? When they use screen readers, the screen readers will actually read your HTML. And if you didn't have an alt text at all, then it will just come here to say, oh, this is an image element, you know, it will not, there's no useful information that is going to supply to the human that is listening to the screen reader. So that's two. The third reason why you need to have an alt is for SEO, search engine optimization. So that when somebody searches for your image, it's actually going to show. So just imagine, let's say you've launched this website and somebody goes on Google, for example, and the person needs an image that looks like, okay, so let me show you something. So look at this. I said, this is what I typed on Google, right? I said profile, picture, avatar. And it brought out all of this. It brought out all of this for me. And I decided to choose this. So let's visit this website. Let me click on the image. I want us to visit this site where we have this avatar. Click on visit. I want to show you something. So do you see? This is the avatar, right? So let's do something. Let's inspect. I want you to see the alt text for this avatar. Let's check out the alt text. Okay. So this is the image. So let me click on it. Okay. Coming to my right, you can see alt. It says that it is a file. So you even see that in their own alt text, they describe that, oh, it's a file. And look at it, profile, avatar, placeholder, large.png. So do you see this is their own alt text? They explain to say profile. And if you look at what I typed on Google, the word profile was there. And what they have here in their alt, there is profile and there's avatar. Look at it. There is profile, there is picture, there's avatar. But in their alt, what do you have? You have profile, you have avatar. So that's why their image was one of the images to show up on Google when I typed profile, picture, avatar. So just imagine you build a site and in the alt text, you don't give relevant keywords that describes that image or that describes that picture that can help search engines to crawl your images when people are searching for your image. Your image will never show on search engines, right? So I've shown you the three applications or the three reasons why you must have an alt text. An alt text is a must have on your image element. Okay? All right, so let's go back. So yeah, so this is it. So let's put back our O so that our image will show. Okay, so you have this. All right. So so what next are we looking at? So let's look at box shadow. Box shadow. Box shadow, right? So let's go to our CSS. And now we are looking at box shadow. Or instead of making it a separate stuff, we already have a div here, div box. Okay, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, in search engines optimization, we do that. It is only alt type that is relevant in doing that. Then you also look at for the body because that's no thing that put it there. Whenever I type a particular word, it goes through articles and bring out the keyword. And the ones that are not in the article, it cancels them. Let go. Then does it also have to do with the body of effects, or it just have to do with like when doing your search engine optimization because you like your site to be accessible by potential users.
So
So
sorry, can you come again? It seems your audio, it seems you are far from your audio and more like there is echo at the background. So please come again so I can hear you clearly.
I'm asking regarding the search engine optimization
Yeah,
you talked
the
about.
audio is better now. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Does it have to do with only the alt type, like what you typed on the alt, or it also extends to the body of your site? Because like remember
Yeah,
when
so
I was
it
in
okay, go ahead.
remember when I was in my project then, like whenever I type keywords like I'm looking at for, the search engine brings out relevant pages, and those ones that are not there, it cancels it, telling me that it's not there. So when I go through, I see those words in line. So I want to know, and also what is the alt type and name? There's something you call name, like whereby it holds. I'm just trying to. It's like a bit confusing. My question is in two actually. Then the search engine optimization, does it extend to the body and whatever content you have on your site?
Okay, all right, thanks. So so first, just to let you know that the search engine optimization goes through your entire HTML. So right from, let me scroll, right from head tag, Google or any other search engine is going to read your site from this head. So even the things you write within your head tag also matters to Google in to help rank your site or to help display your site at the first page where people are searching for stuffs, right? So your metadata, your description, right? Your description, there's something called description here. Um, okay, so I wouldn't go, since we are not dealing with search engine optimization, I don't want to go into details, but just know that right from your head tag, what you have here as the description of your site, right? So you have, let me see, meta, let me see, title. So you can say my website. If you launch this on Google now, right? If you launch this on Google, title, then description. Let me see. Okay, description. Let me see. Description. Okay, so I don't want to go too deep into the search engine optimization at the moment, but just understand that right from your head, right, the head tag where you have meta, from here you can have title, you can have description, and a whole lot, yeah, into your body tag, your headings, right, H1, H2, Google will go into your site. In fact, Google needs to understand your site, right? That's why there's something also called sitemap. Sitemap. So when you are done building your site, you need to generate a sitemap, submit that sitemap to Google. So with that, Google is able to see, okay, oh, this is what your site is about. This is how your site is linked, right? Sitemap. Into your body, your H1, H2, div, paragraph, Google reads, especially the headings. Google reads the headings, even some specific words within the paragraphs, Google reads them to look for. Because Google that is its work. Its work is a search engine. So just go into your database, go into the websites that have been submitted to you. So if you don't submit your site to Google, or if you don't make those relevant, maybe in your meta, in your head tag, you don't have a title, right? In your website, you don't have description. Also, in your body, you don't have relevant keywords that people are searching for. Your site will not come out. Even in your paragraph, you still don't have relevant keywords. Going into your alts, you don't have a good alt text that describes the image. All of these things matter for search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is a different course. In fact, it's a different course on its own, but it has to do with best practices. But since I know search engine optimization, so as I'm teaching you, I'm also trying to show you, oh, this is why you need to do this. Because normally in this alt text, there's actually no rule. You can write anything in this alt text if you like. You can just say an icon. You can put an icon and you go. Your site will still work. But what's the relevance? What's the relevance of an icon in an alt text to the image? When you say an icon, what type of icon? So you need to explain. Because when Google is going through your site, or even when screen readers are reading through your site, it needs to make meaning to a human being, or even those robots, right? Google as a search engine. It needs to make meaning so that it can be able to, because at the end of the day, it's a human being that is searching for these words on Google or any other search engine. So you need to even write something very descriptive to whatever image. It helps Google or other search engines to also feature your website. So search engine optimization is a lot. It's a full course on its own, starting from the head. Remember, it reads through the content in your head down to your body, into your alt, every single thing. And also, if you submit a site map, it helps Google even navigate your site faster and better and be able to showcase it to users. All right, so we are still working with our div_box. So we want to bring in border. We want to bring in, let me see, box shadow. Yeah, box shadow. So let's check. This is our box. So let me see. So let's disable our border for now. Let's still make it to go back to the previous box. Let's disable our border, all our border styles. Okay, just so that you'll be able to see the box shadow clearly. So let's see. Let's say box shadow. Okay, so box shadow actually has different values, right? So let's put this in a comment. Let's put this in a comment, right? Let's put this in a comment, come down, yeah. So let me say box shadow has, so the first value it takes is horizontal offsets. That's the first value. So let's give a command to it. So second value is vertical offset, vertical offset. Then we have blur radius. Okay, so then we have spread radius. Then we have color, right? So these are all. If you want to use everything in box shadow, these are the values. One, it has up to 2, 3, 4, 5. It has up to 5 values. So, but let's demonstrate that and say box shadow. And so it has 5 values, right? So let's say, okay, so I think we'll just give it, okay, so let's increment it so that we'll be able to see 10 pixels, 20 pixels, that's for the second one, 30 pixels, that's for the third one, 40 pixels. Then remember the last one is color. So we can say gray. So let's see something. So it's just because of my dimension, that's why it is the way it is. So, but if you go to the code and instead of 40 here, remember this one before the color stands for spread radius. So if you say instead of 40, you say 10 for spread radius, 10, what happens? So you can see, if you give it 10 for spread radius, It's just for you to see what can happen. So this one is blur radius. It's just maybe the degree of sharpness, right? Either blur, of course, you know what blurry is. Something that is very blurred, you will not be able to see it sharp. It will not be sharp, So you can say, if you say 30 pixels, this is how 30 pixels shows for the blur radius. But if you say, so let's say 10, let's see. So you can see 10 really brings out that you can make it 5. Instead of 10, you can make it 5. Just play around the values, right? And see what happens. If you make it 5, this is how it looks like. So if you like, you can even omit, if you can decide to remove that totally. And you're going to have this as the default. So all these values are not a must, but just to let you know that if you want to specify all of these horizontal offsets, you want to specify vertical offset, you want to specify blur radius, you want to specify spread radius and color, this is it. But let's look at the minimum. Let's see. So what if we just have 10 pixels? Nothing is going to show because there's no color. So if we say 10 pixels and a color, gray. Okay, so nothing still shows. So let's add 20 pixels. Remember the first one is horizontal offset, second is vertical offset. So let's see, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, gray. Okay, so already you can see this. So as a minimum, it can give you, if you specify the horizontal offset and specify the vertical offset and the color, you will definitely see it show here. So, but let me see, if we take out the color and we don't give, is there a default color? So there is a default color, as you can see. So the default color here is black. So if you don't define color, you just say horizontal, this is what I want it to be, vertical, this is what I want it to be, and you don't define a color, it is going to give you black by default, right? But if you come here and you say, oh, I want to define my own color, maybe to say brown, for example. So you're going to see it will take brown. So it really depends on what you want to do. If you have negative values, it's going to go to the opposite side. So let's say box shadow, let's say you had -10. What if you have -10? So do you see? -10 is going to take it to the opposites. And you have -20. So do you see? It takes it to the opposite side of it. So you can use negative values to make it to go opposite if you like. It all depends on what you want to achieve. But just to make you aware that there's something called box shadow, and you can specify all of these. You can specify blur radius if you want, specify the spread radius if you want. You can also use negative values. Negative values will negate it, like will take it to the opposite side, right? So that's box shadow. So finally, for today's class, we are going to look at dimensions, right? Dimensions. So if you watch, there are different dimensions in CSS. Let me see. So we have view width, VW. So VW stands for view width or viewports, right? Viewport width. VH stands for viewport height. So you can see values being measured in VW, VH, even percentage. I think I've used percentage here. So you would see what percentage does. After percentage, you also have stuffs like pixels. Of course, I've been using pixels all this while. That's px. These are just different dimensions you can come across in CSS, because you might look at another person's code, or you might go online and see other people's code, and you are seeing dimensions in VW, and you're like, oh, what's VW? I've never come across VW. I've been seeing pixels, percentage. So just to let you know that there's something called VW, VH, percentage, PX, EM, EM. So EM is just EM. I'll just call it EM because, but I will explain what it is. REM is still REM. Or roots, you can say root EM. EM is also a unit of measurement here at this point in CSS. All right, so viewport width. Let me explain. Viewport width. So this is your viewport width. Your viewport width is your browser window, right? Is the width of your browser window. So your viewport, my viewport width here is from this far left, and you travel down to my far right. That's viewport width. Your entire browser window width. Your entire browser window width. That's viewport width. VH is viewport height, as the name implies. It's your entire browser window height. So as you can see from here, this top, after this tab, not in our search, not in this search bar, just from here, right? From here, going down, 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 you keep going down, right? So that's your viewport height. It's so if you say 100, if you say 100 VH, so it means your full viewport height. If you say 100 VW, that's your full viewport width. So percentage. If you give percentage to something, it's actually going to it's going to calculate the percentage relative to the parent. So percentage, let me see. Let me add some stuff here. So percentage will be calculated based on the dimension of the parent. So when you say 50%, like 50% of something, there's a width, there's a height, and there is now a percentage. So it's going to be calculated based on, okay, so I would check this out, but I think it's going to be calculated based on the dimension of the elements. Yeah, elements, I mean to say. So if the element has a width, like this image, it had a width 50 pixels, right? And it had a height 50 pixels. So what's the border radius? 50%. So 50% of what? 50% of its dimension. That's width and height. So, but let's try to inspect and see if our border radius gives us a measurement in pixels, so that we check what 50% of, so we know what 50% it's calculated and arrived at. So let's just inspect. So we are inspecting this element that we gave a border radius of 50%. So let's see. Let me click on this again. Okay, so let's click. Okay. So it just gave us 50 by 50. Let me click on it. Okay, so it's the same thing showing here, 50%. So the width is 50 pixels, height is 50 pixels, border radius 50%. So, but that 50% is calculated based on the width and height, the dimensions here. Okay. I thought I would be able to see the exact dimension of this 50%. Okay, so you can see, even expanding it further, it says border top left, 50%, border top right, 50%, border bottom right, 50%, border bottom left, 50%. Okay, so let's try something. I want to get the exact dimension of this 50%. So let's come here and say, instead of 50%, let's give it, so what's 50% of 50? That's half, which is 25. So what if we have 25 pixels here? Let's check out something. 25 pixels. What happens? Okay. So that's exactly what I said, 25 pixels. Okay, so let's, just to be sure, let's comment it out. Okay, the image we take its original square, right? It takes its original square. Then when we now say border radius 25 pixels, it's going to be fully round. So this 25 pixels is the same thing as saying 50%. So let me put a comment here to say, let me put a comment to say, so 50% is equal to, you can say is equal to 25 pixels because its width and height, or its dimension, we can say because its dimension is 25 pixels. Is no, not 25 pixels, sorry, 50 pixels. So what I see here is that, so what if we didn't have a perfect 50 by 50, let's say we had 100 by 50. So what's going to happen is that it's actually going to take, so we have 100 by 50, and we say, okay, it is 25 pixels. Let's revert to 50%. 50%. So now we've changed the dimensions. The height is no longer a perfect square, and we say border radius should be 50%. Okay? So it gives us this. So how does it calculate? Let's just see. So if we say 50%, if we say 25 pixels, let's see, 25 pixels. It won't give us that. So that 25 pixels is like 50% of the width. But if we say 50% of the height, which is 50, what does it translate to? Okay. So it still doesn't make sense. If we say, so if we now say 50%, it gives us something. Okay, so I think if we remember that this border radius is made up of 4. It's made up of the border. This is just me trying to dig out this thing. You can always play around, you know, it's something you can play around with. So this is just me trying to, so we have border top left radius, we have border top right, we have border border this top left, top right. So bottom, let's check bottom. Bottom left, and we have bottom right. Border bottom right. So if we calculate this 50% based on remember this width. Width spans from left to right. So if we say 50% of the width is 25. So if we say top left, if we say, okay, let me see. I want to just verify the calculation of this 50%. So if we say top left to be, let's say, half of the width, which is 25 pixels, and we set top right to be 25 pixels, 25 pixels. Then let's just say, let's calculate this bottom left and bottom right based on the height and just see how it looks like. We can always adjust, but let's just see what this translates to. Okay. So this is what it translates to. So what if we make everything 50 pixels? 50. Okay. So okay, so let me see something. Let's see 75. 75. Let's make everything 75, right? So 75, 75. Let's say 75. Okay, it still doesn't work. So I think you have to go down and down and down to say up to, let me just see, 100 pixels. If we make everything, let me see, D 100. Okay, you can go down to say 150. This is 150. All right. So just in order not to waste time, so you can always play around just to be able to find out the exact calculation, but just to know that percentage actually works according to the dimensions. There's actually a calculation around here, which I may have to find out later to see the exact calculation. But just to let you know that percentage will actually be calculated based on the dimension of the element. Pixels, of course, is fixed. You've been seeing it. Pixels is fixed, right? So if we say 20 pixels is 20 pixels, there's no going back. Whether it is a parent, whether it is a child, is fixed, right? So the browser's default font size is 16 pixels, just to let you know. Browsers is this. So let me just say, at this point, I can say, okay, so let's use this. So yeah, so at this point, you can just say, so browsers default font size is 16 pixels. So if you were typing your code and maybe you wrote a text on your site and you never specified the font size, so by default, it's gonna take 16 pixels by default. So this pixels is also still a unit of measurement on your screen, that's on your display, right? EM. So what is EM? EM is just so for example, let me show you. Then let's demonstrate this EM and REM. That's root EM. So let's go here and let's do something here. Let's just say we have a div, for example, div. Okay, let's use small letters. So we have div. So these parents, remember these parents. Then inside it we have child, which is a paragraph. So we can say test paragraph, for example. And this div, we can give it an ID. Call it tests. maybe an ID of test. Then this P, we can give it a class and call it test. We can call it test paragraph, right? Test paragraph, Okay. So I want to show you something. So test, let's take tests. Go to our CSS and here, so let's say ash is an ID. So ash tests, so let's say font size, let's say 20, let's use 24 pixels. Yeah, 24 pixels. So remember, this is the parent. So let's go back to our HTML. So we have a child, which is a text called test paragraph. So let's take it out. It's a class. So class is dots. You use dot to style class. Control V, then you open it up. Okay, so remember, this is font size 24 pixels. So if here we now say font size, if we decide to say font size again for the child, font size, and we say 10, let's say 10 EM. So what's going to happen? What are you going to see? EM is actually a dimension that is relative to the parent. So let's just comment it here. So we can say, so EM, you can say EM's measurements, right? Or dimension is relative to the parent, to the dimension. So we can say dimension of the parent element. So I'm going to show you the demonstration in a bit. So remember, let's go back. This is the parent, and we've given the parent a font size of 24 pixels. P, paragraph, is the child, and we have given the paragraph a font size of 10 EM. So before we even go to the browser, what that means is that the font size of test paragraph is going to be 10 times the font size of the parent, because it is dependent. You gave it EM. EM means I'm dependent on my parent. You know, whatever styling you've given to the parents, and you now give me EM. So EM is just going to be, okay, what is my parent saying? You know, your parent says 24 pixels. So I'm the child, and you have given me 10 EM. So I'm just going to say 10 times 24. That's going to be 240 pixels. That's really going to be large for a text. So let's check it out. So you can see test paragraph, see how large it is. This is 240 pixels. So just to still prove to you, if you inspect this, and you know, this is it, you inspect it, and you click on this, and you bring it to text. So fonts, I don't know if you can see. Can you see 240 pixels? That's the font, right? That's the font in pixels, because the parent is 24. So the child is 10 EM. So it's 10 times 24. Okay? So that's how EM works. EM is relative to the parent, while REM is REM is relative to the roots. So what's the roots? The roots is HTML. That's the roots. So if you style, so let's go back to our index.html. So this is the roots. Remember, from here, this doc type HTML, informing the browser that, oh, this is a HTML page. Second, this line 2, where you have this HTML tag, is roots. You can even see from here, from VS Code, it says the HTML element represents the roots of an HTML document. So this tag here, if I collapse it, Do you see? That is the root. So every single thing that we have been typing in our HTML is within the root, which is HTML tag, right? So inside the HTML tag, you have head and you have body, right? So yeah, so this is the root. So if you come to your styles and say roots, so let's say root is what? HTML. That's the root. So if you come here and say font size, if you come and define the font size here to say font size should be, so let's make it something really large. Let's say 50 pixels. So when you say font size 50 pixels, in fact, automatically you will see everything in you see everything will start, that is the roots. So everything contained in it, we want to take that 50 pixels. So you see, everything has become very big. But when you come here, this one still remains 240. It remains 240 because there's a relationship, there's an existing relationship. You've come to the test to define its own font size, which is the parent, and you've decided to make the child dependent on the parent. So the 50 pixels is just going to apply for every other thing that you did not define font size for. So this is the root, remember, 50 pixels. So if you come here, if we have another paragraph, let's create another paragraph. We are not putting it under any parent, just anywhere. Just say paragraph. Maybe you can say we want to test REM, for example. So here you can give it a class and say REM REM paragraph. Okay, so you can copy it. Control C, come to your style.css. It's a class, so dots. Control V. You open this up. Okay, so I said rem is relative to the roots. So let's say within this paragraph, we say font size. So 50 pixels. So let's not make it too large. Let's say the other one is 240. So let's say, so if we say 2 is 2 times 50 is 100 pixels. If we say 10 will be really large. If we equally say 10, or let's say 20, 20 REM, that would really be large. So that means 20 times 50. That's 1,000 pixels, right? So that's the meaning. Of course, you can see it looks quite large. So that's 1,000 pixels. Okay, let's reduce it, 10. So 10 is going to be 500. So 10 is reduced. Okay, so so if you say 2, reduce to 2, so it means 2 times 50 pixels. So you see, this is 100 pixels. We want to test rem. All right, so yeah, so we come to the end of the class for today.